What's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Unique Experience, part of the Fujibo Heavy channel. I know it's been a while since I've shot a video, so I kind of wanted to take something and just kind of give you guys an update as to what's going on and my current project, or I guess you could say projects, since I did sell the Mark IV Supra. So stay tuned and I'll go over everything. All right, guys, once again, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Unique Experience. This is part of the Fujibo channel. For those of you returning, thank you for watching the video. If you're new to this, please hit the like and subscribe button if you do enjoy the content. So to kind of take a step back, the last video I did, I believe, was of my 93 Supra. And I recently sold it. Well, I guess not recently. It's actually been a few months since I sold it. But ever since then, I did pick up a couple new toys. So, to kind of go over the kind of what happened, with the Supra, you know, I had a local guy reach out to me on, I think it was like a Thursday evening. And basically he said that he had been watching my car ever since I listed it. And he really didn't want to spend that much, but I guess he really liked it and kind of wanted to just check it out. So, you know, I told him, you know, you could come by Friday after I get off work, come check it out, see what you think, you know, and just take it from there. So he ended up showing up, loved the car, and he bought it. So when it comes to cars, I'm super impatient, right? I feel like I have to have some sort of toy or something to tinker with in the garage. So I had my eye on a couple things, but you know, the whole purpose of this channel is to kind of share my experience with you, and my personal goal is to own and experience as many unique cars as possible. And just because it's unique doesn't mean it has to be expensive, but just something that's different, something that has a story. So I had my eye on a couple things, but a buddy of mine kept kind of, I don't want to say pushing his car on me, but he was very persistent on, you know, having me check out his car. So I was like, you know what? It's something that I've never owned before, and I do think that it's pretty cool. And so as soon as I sold the Supra, my wife and I jumped in the car, and we actually shot over to his house to go check it out. So the car that he had was a 2006 Aston Martin Vantage V8. So I know what you're thinking, or I'll tell you what I was thinking. So I never really considered an Aston Martin. And the reason why is, well, one, I've never really looked into them. And not knowing anything about them, kind of my assumption of them is that they were just super expensive. You know, they could only be serviced at the dealership. And, you know, for me, if I buy something, I also want to ensure that, you know, I can fix it if it breaks, and, you know, I can afford to give it the attention it deserves. So I don't want to just be able to buy the car. I want to make sure that I can, you know, get it to where it needs to be if something's wrong. So, so basically we went there, I checked it out, and, you know, a huge thing for me is like, you know, the first sight, right? So when we pulled up and I saw the rear end of that car, I'm like, that's it. Yeah, that car looks great. So, so basically, I looked at it, talked to him, took it for a drive, and I was pretty much sold. So, I ended up buying the car, bringing it home, and the next morning I kind of just cleaned it up. And, so to kind of go over the specs of it, it's a 2006 Aston Martin Vantage V8. I believe it had around 50-some thousand miles. It was a 6-speed manual trans car. And the color was pretty cool. The color was yellow. And what's funny is, like, I always told myself it takes a special kind of person to buy a yellow car and to get into a yellow car every day. And yet I believe this was number 3 for me. I did have a yellow Audi S4, and I also had the yellow R34 Skyline, and now a yellow Aston. But what was super cool about the Aston is that I believe they only made 30 Vantage V8s in yellow, and my particular one was in speed yellow. And speed yellow is actually a OEM Porsche color, and the speed yellow was a factory option from Aston. So mine was speed yellow, which was really cool. The car, when I got it, was pretty much factory. He did have a couple modifications done that were very kind of minor, you know, like the tail lights were smoked, third brake light was smoked. All the lighting, I guess you could say, was smoked. And then it had another set of wheels, but they weren't the factory Vantage wheels, but they were Aston wheels, and they were painted gloss black. Other than that, the car was pretty much factory. And honestly, the car was great. There's a lot of really cool, unique things about it. You know, the push button start that's kind of in the center of the dash was pretty unique. The e-brake is on the left side. So basically, to engage it, you pretty much just lift it up. You'll see the e-brake light come on, then you put it back down. So this way, if you're trying to get out of the car, you know, you're not going to hit the e-brake. Another thing that was pretty cool is the RPM gauge. When you look at the gauge cluster, it's just very clean looking. It's not like too much. It's not like too aggressive. It doesn't seem like there's a ton going on. It's so simple. It's elegant, and I just love that about it. And the RPM needle actually went the opposite way. So normally, you know, your RPM would go that way, whereas this one would go the opposite way, which was super cool. And then I guess you could say probably my favorite feature about the Aston was the swan doors. So when you open up the doors, they open up at a 15-degree angle. And the thought process behind that is if you're parked next to a curb or something like that, it'll clear the curb without you, you know, kind of banging the door into it. So, you know, going back to the Aston, a huge reason why I did it is because once I started looking into it, maintenance and everything on the car was actually very simple, very basic maintenance, and they're actually pretty reliable cars, which I never knew. So basically, a friend of mine who I know who has had his Vantage for a long time ended up starting a company called Red Pants. It was called Red Pants LOL. And his name's Richard Seidlitz. He is the owner, and Richard pretty much takes, he has done all the homework for you. So there's a lot of interchangeable parts for Astons because, you know, there are Ford, Jaguar, Volvo, Land Rover parts, and a lot of them are interchangeable, and Richard pretty much did the homework for you. So it's turnkey. Whatever you need, you can just go to his website. I'll actually go ahead and put the link down below so you guys can check it out. If you are considering an Aston, definitely recommend checking out his website. You can save yourself tons of money. And not only does he sell the stuff, but he actually does a ton of DIY videos. And I learned a lot about the Aston through Richard, honestly, just watching his videos and educating myself. You know, to kind of go over the things that I did during my ownership, was first thing was oil change, right? So the car takes 10 liters of 10W60. I believe you can use like a factory BMW oil. I just went through Red Pants. I went to his website, and he pretty much offers an oil change kit. So that car has a dry sump. He sells the entire kit that has the filter, the plug, you know, gaskets, and the oil and everything. So you just order it from him, and you'll save yourself a ton of money. I think in total to do the oil change materials was like $200. Another one of the things that I did during ownership is kind of a small thing that kind of bothered me, but the fob, the factory key fob for the Vantage V8, the earlier model ones at least, are literally Volvo key fobs. So I actually had two keys. One still had the leather wrapped around it, but if you looked on the back, you can actually see the Volvo lettering kind of peeking through. So that was kind of funny. And then the other key, the leather was gone, and it just literally says Volvo on the back. And you're like, hold on, I bought an Aston. What is it? You know, the key fobs say Volvo. Also, the navigation system in the 06 Vantage was Volvo as well, because I used to have a couple S60Rs, and very similar. It's actually the same thing. So through Red Pants, I did get the spin state key fob. So basically, it's a key fob that is kind of an upgrade, I guess you could say. And basically, the cool thing about it is the factory key fob is kind of weird. The direction that it points, if you were to kind of, point it at the car and unlock it, the key dangles in front of you, which is kind of strange. It's a weird design. But the spin state key fob basically reverses that. So this way the key is in your hand when you're aiming it and, unlocking, locking the door, whatever it is. So, pretty inexpensive mod. I feel like it was like $100, and basically you just take apart your factory fob. It's very easy. I believe it comes with everything you need to do it. The only thing you may need is like a very small Phillips head. So that was pretty cool. It didn't say Volvo anymore, which was nice. One of the issues that I had with my Aston when I got it is, and I believe it is a common problem with those cars, is sometimes the radio or the sound will go in and out, right? So like when I started up the car, actually the night I went to go look at it, when I turned on the car and turned on the radio, no sound came out of the speakers. The car had a factory subwoofer, and it's actually right behind you, right behind the driver's seat. And it sounded like muffled, right? Like all the sound was trying to come out of the subwoofer. So I turned it off, turned it back on, and then the sound kind of faded in. And then I haven't really had the issue since. But after doing some research, I believe it's called a Bluetooth switcher module. And seems to be a common problem. Went to Red Pants again. He actually offered a solution for, I believe, $150, and it was actually super easy to replace. Basically, you go into the passenger side footwell, and when you pull the carpet back, you'll see a metal plate that's held on by, I believe, like 10 TUEX bolts. And basically, you undo those bolts, you pull the plate off, and then the module's actually sitting right towards the bottom. And you just unplug it, plug in the new one, and then you're good to go. Put the plate back on, bolt it in, put the carpet back on top, and you're done. Haven't had the issue since. The only other issue that I had with the car was the driver's side taillight had condensation in it. And normally when you get condensation in the taillights, it's not a huge deal, right? Because a lot of the times taillights are housings. So they'll have like a separate, socket or something that kind of plugs into the housing. And, you just usually can take it apart, reseal it, whatever, and that should fix it. But with the Aston, all the electronics are pretty much built into the taillight. And the issue I was coming across is whenever you would hit the left side turn signal, basically it would only blink once and then it would not blink again. So that's definitely a huge safety issue if, you are using your turn signals and, people around you don't know where you're going. So, luckily, my friend who I got the car from gave me a used driver's side taillight that worked great, but obviously it was still red. As I mentioned earlier, all the lighting was smoked. So what I did was I removed the passenger side that was already smoked, had that one stripped down, and then I had both taillights tinted at the same time. So this way it was like kind of the same level of tint on them, because I just didn't want one to be darker than the other. But other than that, I mean, that pretty much fixed that issue. Otherwise, I would say the Aston's a great car. So actually, I guess I'll go ahead and jump into it. I sold the car, right? It was a great car. I really enjoyed it. My only kind of challenge with it was it didn't have back seats, right? And, there are cars out there that barely have, back seats. But the Aston literally doesn't have any seats. It has a shelf in the back. And when you open up the shelf, that's where your subwoofer's on one side. There's a toolkit. The battery's back there. So it just becomes an issue just because, I like to do stuff with my family. I like to do car gatherings. I like to go to Cars and Coffee. And, I like them to come with me, or at least know that it's an option if they want to come. There is room and we can all go together. So I put the Aston out there for sale, and actually a local guy picked it up, and he loves the car. He used to have a DB9, had some custom wheels made for his DB9, sold it to somebody locally, and he reached back out to that gentleman, and he just so happened to still have the wheels, and he bought them and put them on there, and the car looks great. So I'm super thrilled that he has it. And yeah, it's definitely you know, a great car. So I will say, even though my experience owning the Aston was pretty short-lived, I would 100% own another one. You know, prior to looking into Aston, like I said, I assumed that they were super expensive to maintain, repair, dealership only, very expensive. Once I started looking into it, it's actually very easy, they're very reliable, and maintenance is pretty simple. And these are all things that I learned from Richard Seidlitz over at Red Pants. So huge shout out to Richard. Thank you for making, you know, ownership, I guess you could say, more attainable for people. Because prior to looking into it, I just didn't think it was an option. And now that I've owned one, I know that they are actually pretty awesome cars, and you know, they're pretty easy to maintain. So I know that this video is pretty long, but I guess I'll go ahead and jump into the other car, because as I mentioned, since I sold the Supra, I did pick up projects. So there's several different projects.